Tragedy strikes. The distant planet of Arcadia was a peaceful haven, a shining example of humanity's ability to thrive among the stars. For the settlers who called it home, life was an idyllic blend of hard work and simple pleasures beneath alien suns. That tranquility was shattered when the raiders came. They struck without warning or mercy, a horde of mismatched ships descending from the sky like locusts. The colony's defenses, designed to repel native predators, were woefully inadequate against the onslaught. Amidst the chaos and destruction, a young girl named Lila Novak huddled in terror with her family. Her father, a former soldier, had already left to join the colony's beleaguered defenders. Her mother clutched Lila's infant brother, trying in vain to soothe his cries. The sound of heavy footsteps and guttural voices in the street sent a spike of fear through Lila's heart. She watched in numb horror as the door buckled and gave way, 3 hulking figures shouldering their way inside. They were Kruvaks, a savage reptilian species known for their cruelty and love of bloodshed. The leader's eyes glinted with malice as he leveled his rifle at Lila's mother. Acting on pure instinct, Lila threw herself forward, shielding her baby brother with her own frail body. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the shot. Pain exploded in her chest, stealing her breath. As darkness closed in, Lila's last thoughts were of the little boy still cradled beneath her. She hoped it had been enough. Miles away, in the burning ruins of the colony's command center, a desperate transmission winged its way toward distant Earth, carrying with it a plea for justice and a terrible reckoning to come. On the blood-soaked streets of Arcadia, a human child lay still, her life cut short by an act of senseless brutality. The raiders moved on, leaving shattered lives and broken bodies in their wake. They did not yet understand the terrible mistake they had made. They could not conceive of the fury they had unleashed, but they would learn. Humanity's fury awakens. The news hit Earth like a lightning bolt, sending shockwaves rippling around the globe. The images were inescapable. Homes burning, bodies strewn in the streets, and in the center of it all, the tiny, lifeless form of Lila Novak. She became a symbol, a rallying cry. Her innocent face stared out from screens and billboards, a silent accusation that humanity could not ignore. The public demanded action, retribution. The Kruvaks and their ilk had preyed on humanity's peaceful expansion for too long. It was time to take a stand. Behind closed doors, Earth's leaders made a decision that would change the course of history. It was time to unleash the Peacekeeper fleet. Officially, the Peacekeepers did not exist. Forged in secret, they were humanity's ultimate deterrent, a silent guardian kept in reserve for the day when diplomacy and soft power failed. That day had come. Admiral Nolan Zane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the TSS Retribution, and watched as Earth's hidden might emerge from the shadows. Sleek battle cruisers, lightning-fast frigates, and colossal dreadnoughts. The Peacekeepers were a force unrivaled in the known galaxy. Zane was a hard man, tempered by a life spent on the front lines. But even he felt a chill as he surveyed the armada at his command. This was the hammer that would shatter humanity's enemies and ensure that Lila Novak's death, that all the deaths on Arcadia, would not go unanswered. As the fleet made ready to depart, messages of support poured in from Earth's allies. The Kruvaks had few friends among the stars. Most races were all too happy to see them face humanity's judgment. But there were others, the envious, the fearful, who watched humanity's war machine rumble to life with trepidation. They saw the Peacekeepers not as defenders, but as a looming threat, a giant stirring from slumber. Admiral Zane paid them no mind. His gaze was fixed on the stars, on a distant world that cried out for vengeance. "Set course for Arcadia," he commanded, his voice cold and resolute. "We have monsters to hunt." The Retribution's engines surged, the dreadnought's hull shuddering with barely restrained power. Around it, the fleet leaped forward as one, tearing holes in the fabric of space-time. Humanity's fury had awakened, and the galaxy would tremble before it. The hunt begins. The Outer Rim was a lawless expanse, a haven for the galaxy's most vicious predators. It was here, in this cosmic wilderness, that the Peacekeeper fleet began its hunt. Admiral Zane's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display, watching as scout ships and long-range probes mapped the Kruvax's movements. The beasts were cunning. He would give them that. They knew how to hide their tracks. But not well enough. Not from him. "We've got them, sir," Commander Eliza Hale reported from her station. "Signal traces converging on a single point. It's the Kruvax staging ground. Has to be." Zane allowed himself a grim smile. "Then that's where we're headed. Prepare the fleet for immediate hyperspace jump." The Retribution shuddered as its drives spooled up, the fabric of reality straining against the ship's immense bulk. Then, with a blinding flash, the dreadnought vanished, the rest of the fleet disappearing in its wake. They emerged on the outskirts of a debris field, the shattered remains of long-dead worlds drifting in the void. And there, nestled among the graveyard of planets, was their quarry. The Kruvax fleet was an ugly thing, a mismatched collection of ships bristling with makeshift weapons and stolen technology. At its heart was a monstrous vessel, a bloated hive of rusted metal and pulsing engines. "That's Morkath's ship," Zane growled. "The Cruel's own lair." Morkath the Cruel. The name was spoken in hushed whispers among the stars, a byword for savagery and terror. He was the undisputed ruler of the Outer Rim, a warlord whose brutality knew no bounds. And now he would answer for his crimes. "This is Admiral Nolan Zane of the Terran Peacekeeper fleet," the Admiral broadcast, his voice cold and unyielding. "Morkath the Cruel, you and your followers stand accused of atrocities against the people of Arcadia. Surrender now or face the consequences." For a long moment there was silence. Then a hissing, sibilant voice filled the comm channels, dripping with malice. "Foolish humans," Morkath rasped. "You dare to threaten me? I will flay the skin from your bones and feast on your entrails. I will." Zane cut the transmission with a flick of his hand, disgust etched on his features. "I'll take that as a no to surrender," he said dryly. He turned to his crew, resolve hardening his gaze. "Weapons free. Let's show this bastard what happens when you spill human blood." Across the fleet, gun ports slid open and missile bays thrummed to life. The Peacekeepers had come to deliver a message, written in fire and blood. The Kruvax would learn the depths of humanity's wrath, or they would die in the attempt. There could be no other way. Battle lines drawn. As the Peacekeepers bore down on Morkath's forces, the Galactic community held its collective breath. The repercussions of this single engagement could reshape the balance of power for generations to come. On the neon-lit streets of 100 worlds, sentients of all races huddled around news feeds, watching the drama unfold in real time. In the halls of power, leaders engaged in frantic diplomacy, trying to position their civilizations to benefit from the coming upheaval. For the Galactic Council, the governing body that had long sought to maintain peace among the stars, the situation was a nightmare come to life. As the designated mediator for interstellar disputes, the Council was duty-bound to intervene. "This is madness," Ambassador Teller of the Vanu Sovereignty declared, his voice resonating through the Council chamber. "The humans risk plunging the entire galaxy into war. We must stop them before it's too late." "And how do you propose we do that?" Councillor Zara Wren asked pointedly. "The Peacekeepers are operating entirely within their rights. The Kruvax struck first. Humanity is entitled to defend itself." "Defend itself, yes," Teller shot back. "But this is not defense. This is vengeance, pure and simple. The humans seek to make an example of Morkath, to flex their military might. We cannot allow it." The debate raged on, even as the Peacekeeper fleet clashed with the Kruvax in the skies above Arcadia. Morkath, sensing an opportunity, played to the Council's fears. "See how the humans bare their fangs," he broadcast across every available frequency. "Today, they come for me. But tomorrow, who among you will be next to feel the sting of their wrath?" Join me, and together we will check humanity's aggression before it consumes us all." It was a siren song, and not all were deaf to its tune. In hidden strongholds and shadowed enclaves, old grudges stirred and secret pacts were made. The simmering resentments that had long lurked beneath the veneer of galactic unity bubbled to the surface, drawn forth by Morketh's call to arms. But there were those who saw through the Kruvak's warlord's duplicity. Among them was Ilara Thorn, Earth's ambassador to the Council. The Kruvaks slaughtered innocent civilians, Thorn reminded the assembled counselors, her voice ringing with conviction. They murdered children in their beds. These crimes will not go unanswered. If the Council will not stand with us, then by God, humanity will stand alone. And stand they did, even as Morketh rallied his Outer Rim allies and the Council dithered. The peacekeepers pressed their attack. The Kruvak ships were tough and heavily armed, but they were no match for the sheer technological might of the human fleet. One by one, Morketh's enforcers fell, shattered by the peacekeepers' relentless onslaught. But the warlord himself remained elusive, always slipping away just as victory seemed within reach. Admiral Zane gritted his teeth as another salvo rocked the Retribution's shields. Morketh was leading them on a merry chase, buying time for what? What did the beast have in store? "Keep the pressure on," Zane ordered, his eyes hard. "We end this, here and now, no matter the cost." The battle lines had been drawn. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and humanity, for better or worse, would see this through to the bitter end. Shockwave. As the battle raged above Arcadia, Morketh played his final desperate card. "Behold," he roared across the comm channels, madness and malice dripping from every word. "Behold the instrument of your destruction, humans. The planet killer comes, and with it, your doom." Admiral Zane's blood ran cold as a new contact blinked into existence on the tactical display. It was massive, easily dwarfing even the largest of the peacekeeper dreadnoughts. And it was coming straight for Arcadia. Analysis. Zane barked, his knuckles white on the command console. "Unknown design, but the energy readings are off the charts," Commander Hale reported, her face ashen. "If that thing hits the planet..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what was at stake. All ships, new target. Zane roared. "Convergence on that doomsday weapon, now. We take it out, or we die trying." Across the battlefield, human vessels peeled away from their engagements, racing toward this new, terrifying threat. Fighters and bombers swarmed around the behemoth like angry wasps, peppering its hull with ordnance. But even as explosions blossomed across the planet killer's surface, Zane could see it was not enough. The thing's armor was too thick, its shielding too strong. It shrugged off the peacekeepers' attacks like raindrops, implacable in its advance. Desperation bred inspiration. The tactical channel crackled with a dozen voices, each offering a plan more audacious than the last. Zane listened, his mind racing. Then, slowly, a grim smile spread across his face. "Pilot Shen," he said, his voice cutting through the chatter. "That crazy idea of yours, you certain it will work?" "No, sir," came the response, the words laced with a reckless grin. "But certain's a luxury we can't afford. I'll get it done." What followed would go down in history as one of the most insane feats of skill and bravery ever attempted. Shen, with a hand-picked squadron of volunteers, dove straight for the planet killer's maw, a suicidal charge into the jaws of death itself. Pulse beams and flak bursts filled the void, stitching deadly patterns through the darkness. One by one, Shen's wingmates vanished in bursts of flame, sacrificing themselves to draw the defense grid's fire. But Shen flew on, dancing through the maelstrom with preternatural grace. Closer and closer, until with a final exultant cry, she rammed her fighter directly into the planet killer's primary exhaust port. For a single, breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, the doomsday weapon convulsed, explosions rippling down its length as Shen's ship tore through its guts like a white-hot lance. Secondary detonations followed, the planet killer's reactor going critical. When the glare faded, nothing remained of the terrible machine but an expanding cloud of debris. A ragged cheer went up from the Peacekeeper fleet, but the job wasn't done. Not yet. Morkath, seeing his trump card destroyed, tried to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. The warlord found himself surrounded, cut off, with the full might of humanity bearing down upon him. Morkath. Admiral Zane's voice was thunder, amplified by 1,000 broadcasters. For crimes against humankind, for the innocent blood on your claws, I find you guilty. The sentence is death. The Kruvak's flagship crumbled under the weight of the Peacekeeper's judgment, its hull splintering, atmosphere igniting. And with it, Morkath the Cruel, scourge of the Outer Rim, met his end, a tyrant consumed by the fire of his own making. But even as the last embers cooled, Zane knew this was only the beginning. The battle was won, but the repercussions were just starting to unfold. Humanity had shown its fangs, and the galaxy would never be the same. Reckoning. In the wake of the Battle of Arcadia, a stunned silence descended over the galaxy. The Kruvaks, once the terror of the Outer Rim, had been broken, their power shattered by the fury of the Peacekeeper fleet. Morkath the Cruel was dead. His reign of terror ended at last. Those of his followers who had survived the engagement fled into the depths of space, scattered and leaderless. On Arcadia, the settlers emerged from their bunkers to a world transformed. The great cities lay in ruins, the once verdant fields scorched and lifeless. But they were alive, and they were free. The Peacekeepers had kept their promise. Across the planet, memorials were raised to the fallen. Statues of Leela Novak and Pilot Shen stood proud and tall, testaments to the sacrifices that had bought Arcadia's salvation. But while Arcadia rebuilt, the wider galaxy trembled. For the display of humanity's military might had not gone unnoticed. In the Galactic Council, the recriminations flew fast and furious. There were demands for sanctions against Earth, for the Peacekeepers to be disbanded, and their leaders brought to trial. But cooler heads prevailed. For every voice decrying human aggression, another rose in humanity's defense. Whatever the Peacekeepers' methods, they argued, their cause had been just. The Kruvaks had struck first. Humanity had merely finished what they started. And beneath it all ran an undercurrent of fear. For if this was the might humanity had kept hidden, what other secrets did the Terrans hold? How deep did their strength truly run? There were no easy answers, only a galaxy left to grapple with a new and uncertain dawn. For Admiral Zane and his victorious fleet, the taste of triumph was bittersweet. They had accomplished their mission, but the cost had been high. Too many good men and women would not be returning home. But even as they mourned, the Peacekeepers stood tall. They had shown the galaxy the mettle of humanity, the lengths to which they would go to protect their own. Let the politicians and the pundits squabble. The fleet had done what needed to be done. And on a small blue world, a family grieved. Leela Novak's parents, their hearts heavy with sorrow, looked to the stars and whispered a prayer for the daughter they had lost. But even in their grief, there was solace, for they knew that Leela's sacrifice had not been in vain. Her death, terrible and tragic though it was, had been the spark that ignited a fire that had burned away a great evil and ensured that no other family would suffer as they had. Humanity had been tested, and it had emerged stronger, united by a common purpose. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, threats both old and new. But one thing was certain. When the next crisis came, when the next enemy threatened the peace and security of humanity's worlds, the Peacekeepers would be ready. For they were the watchmen on the walls, the guardians in the night. They were the best and brightest of a species that had clawed its way from the mud to the stars. They were human, and they would not be broken. Epilogue. In a quiet corner of Arcadia, a father knelt before a small, simple grave. Tears streamed down his face as he traced the letters carved into the headstone. Leela Novak, beloved daughter, hero. I miss you so much, little angel, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Every day, every hour, but I want you to know, your mommy and I, we're so proud of you. So very proud. He placed a single flower on the grave, a splash of color against the gray stone. The galaxy knows your name now, he continued. They know what you did, the sacrifice you made. You've become a symbol, a beacon of hope for so many. He stood, his eyes never leaving the headstone. Sleep well, my brave girl. Your fight is over. But ours is just beginning. We'll take up the torch you lit, and we'll carry it forward. For you, for all of us. With a final, loving touch, he turned and walked away. Behind him, the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold. A new day was dawning, a new age. The age of humanity.